Massive growth by addition. And with many other words, he testified and exhorted them, saying, "Be saved from this perverse generation." Then those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread, and in prayers. Then fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done through the apostles. Now all who believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods, and divided them among all, as anyone had need. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. Acts 2 verses 40 to 47. Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. It's the end of the week, which means some of us will be going to church today and others tomorrow, and still there are others who will not set foot into a church. Whatever you do, let me encourage you to engage in some kind of fellowship with Jesus and his people. That aside, I'm inviting us to take a trip back down in history and study the massive expansion of the early church by addition. Let's start in Acts 1. After Jesus departed to heaven, the 11 disciples, some women including Jesus' mother Mary, and some others totaling 120, met in the upper room waiting for the arrival of the Spirit. He arrived on the day of Pentecost, right there in the upper room. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Acts 2 and verse 4. Have you ever been anywhere and heard a bunch of people speaking in tongues all at the same time? No kidding. That can be pretty weird, especially since nobody is talking in your language. Well, that morning back in Jerusalem, with 120 persons in the upper room speaking in various languages all at the same time, people on the outside were able to identify some foreign languages. That created even more curiosity or confusion, because the people on the outside were beginning to accuse those on the inside of being drunk. Peter stood up and shot down that suggestion. That was when the former fisherman, Mr. Peter, preached his first sermon. At the end of Peter's sermon, he had an altar call, and people outside loved the sermon. They were moved by the sermon. And the Bible said about 3,000 people were added to the number that day. You would best believe that was precisely how Jesus wanted this great universal church to have been launched, right there in Jerusalem with the apostles and anyone who would believe. Isn't it amazing how on the first day Jesus added 3,000 people to the 120 people who were already part of the church? That is growth by addition. Let me say that God was not caught by surprise with that large number of converts on day one. He knew that would happen and that there was much more to come. So now, what next? We don't know if Peter and the rest of the apostles gave the people a schedule of events for the coming week, but you have to know that God was in control. Because here is what happened. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and in fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayer. Acts 2 and verse 42. Allow me for a moment to use my imagination. Remember, all of this is new. I think as the first day was drawing to a close, somebody might have shouted from the crowd, "Hey you, Peter, now that we are baptized and are followers of Christ, what do we do next? What's the plan?" That would have been a great question, wouldn't it? Well, by now you know that Peter is quick on his feet, so it is likely he would have shouted back at the crowd, "Right now we don't have a schedule planned out, but here's what I say. Let's all meet here tomorrow morning about 10 o'clock. Just like people used to do when Jesus was in town. We will do what Jesus used to do while he was here. He would teach. Come and hear some teaching. Let's get back to the Bible. Remember, God is truly amazing and nothing is impossible with God. For the next several days, people turned up every day, and after a while, this was what they were engaged in. 1. The apostles, meaning Peter and the others, they would teach the people about Jesus and about some commands that he had given them while he was here on earth. 2, they would spend time in fellowship, getting to know each other. Number 3, they would eat regular food and do communion together. And number 4, they would spend time in prayer. That must have been something to experience. The church was having a great time together. Added to that, there was something exciting that was emerging in all of that. People were selling properties and goods and donating the money to the apostles to be distributed among people who were less fortunate. That is something that some church groups are still doing. They seek to take care of people in the congregation and in the community who are less fortunate. This will discourage those who have just been saved from staying away and suffer or go back to their former way of life. That's a great demonstration of Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22, verses 36 to 40. Friendship groups were formed. People would entertain others in their homes in generous ways. But the big one I want us to end on is this. Phenomenal growth took place, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Acts 2 and verse 47. We usually depend on large evangelistic events to win lots of souls for the growth of the local church. That is great, but look at what happened in those early days of the church. I'm sure there were instances of preaching, but it seems that these early Christians did some things that attracted members of the community, and they started coming to see what was going on among this group of Christians. The teachings of the apostle, eating together, praying together. All of these activities attracted others to come meet Jesus, and more people were getting saved day by day. I want to be saved. I want to be saved. Over here, I want to be saved. The gospel of Jesus is not just preaching with words, but also preaching love in action. That's one of the things that Jesus commanded his disciples to do before he left. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. John 13 verses 34 and 35. My friends, in the beginning, that was how the church grew exponentially, by addition.